Hi everyone, this is Diane, and I have completed 2 more fabric covered journals. You have probably seen some of the process videos where I was working on these. So if you did, you know that this image is from a vintage tablecloth. I just cut it out of the tablecloth. I bought it at a flea market, and I appliqued it by zigzag stitch to this cream colored fabric. I cut one of the other elements from the tablecloth and part of the border and zigzag them to the back, and that's what this one looks like. One of these journals will be available for sale in my shop, and it's called Folk Art Fabric Covered Journal. I sewed some eyelet to the edge of the cover and some gold colored sheer ribbon. There is some quilt batting in there, and then on the inside is a vintage sheet, and I love this. It's one of those really nice quality cotton heavier sheets, and I just love the colors with this. And then I sewed some gold rickrack up there and made a pocket out of a piece of fabric with another applique from the tablecloth and another piece of vintage rickrack. The pages that I chose to use in this book are from Ephemera's Vintage Garden, and they're called Cottage Garden. And I also used some of her fun elements. There's one called Doodle Fairies, and they're the little, it says, she art inspired elements. So they're the little dolls. You'll see them. And then there's another kit that matches, and it's called Ephemera's Heart Song. So I use those elements also. So this butterfly is from one of those kits. I had printed those kits a long time ago, so I don't remember what elements go with what. But this butterfly is one of them. There were quite a few butterflies, or moths. This is from a vintage collectible book that I had, and I used quite a few of those elements in this book too. I just cut them out and made ephemera. And I used some of the pages. I think I used some of those pages, maybe not. This is a giant tag that I inked and stamped This Book Belongs To. This is an element from TLC Creates Vintage, and I just stitched it to a piece of vellum. Made a large pocket out of it. There's a pocket here, which I just remembered I have to put a tag in there, and there's a peach colored rickrack there. This is from the Collectibles book, and this is a drawing of a doll pen wiper. So I guess you would use these fabric petals to wipe off your fountain pen. I sewed it to some coffee dyed paper, and it tucks right in there, and you can see her through the vellum. Oh, excuse me. I thought I went through this book and everything was done, and then I just remembered that I have to put a tag in there. This is one of the Ephemera's Garden elements. Those who wish to sing always find a song. And this is from the Cottage Garden kit. And I printed on the back sides too, from the same kit. There's a fabric flip here, and this is just a digital printout that I sewed on there for journaling, and this might be from Ephemera's Vintage Garden also. I just had stuff in my stash that I used. This is kind of a whimsical scrapbook paper here, and the papers are copy dyed. Yeah, this is a page from the Collectibles book, Antiques and Collectibles, and this was a section on lanterns. Did a little fabric cluster there, and this is a little Kate Greenaway doll from a salt and pepper shaker set. Salt and pepper shaker set, yes. I fussy cut her and just glued her there, and the little boy that goes with that set is in the other journal. This is a picture that was in that book, and I cut it out and made it into a tuck spot. This is just a scrap of text of the paper right here, and I turned it into a tag and tucked it in there. Vintage graph paper here. This is from one of the Ephemera's Garden kits, and so is this. And this was a pocket, and I wasn't quite sure. Like I said, I printed it a long time ago, and I cut it out, but I hadn't assembled it. So it had a front and a back, and then it had this extra piece. So I'm not sure if this was the right way to do it, but I just made it so you could open it up and write on it, and then inside you have a couple of cards that you can also write on. And I glued this on. This was another of the cards, and I just glued it on the front, and you can write on that too. Here's an element from the antique book, and then this is an element from Ephemera's Garden, and I thought they looked cute together, old and new. This is from Cottage Garden. A page from the book with a fabric ruffle here, and this is vintage fabric. Vintage rickrack on the edge there. I love the poppies in this Cottage Garden kit. I just tied the center into a bow. And this hat, I loved this, and I had to stick it in there somewhere, so I found a page and glued it on. It came from that vintage collectible book. Here's a piece from the tablecloth that included a couple borders on it. So I stitched it on as a pocket, added a couple of yo-yos, and this is from Tsunami Rose. I used some of her ephemera pieces. I've had a folder of them printed and cut for quite a while, so I used some of them. And I found a paper doll from my collection that I reserved to use in journals. I sold most of my paper dolls, but I did save some to put in journals. So here's a little dolly dingle that I put in here. Another little cluster, and there's a little paper doll dress on that piece of fabric. Here are the Doodle Fairies from Ephemera's Vintage Garden. I glued this one on as a little tuck spot, and there's a little Kate Greenaway napkin ring. You can see the ring behind him where you would tuck the napkin. And this is from this book also. Just a little advertisement for some of the collectibles that were available. And then this is a piece of vintage beadsack fabric, and I thought it looked folk artsy, so I stitched that on and added this piece of vintage rickrack that matched it beautifully. And then this little Doodle Fairy, I just cut her out and inked her a little bit on the back. A lot of the inking I did in these books was with the Distress ink peeled paint. Another fabric flip with a little printable that you can write on. And these are both from Ephemera's Vintage Garden. This is the pale yellow eyelet with a piece of yellow velvet ribbon. This is from Tsunami Rose, Ephemera's Vintage Garden, and this little cut glass decanter, it was a perfume bottle, came from my Collectibles book. And this is just a piece of printed cardstock, and I just cut it and rounded the corners and put it in there. It's a nice big photo mat or journaling card. Here's the pocket on the back with the applique from the tablecloth. And then this is a coffee dyed index card, one of the large ones, and you see this stack of flower seed packet printables. I did a artsology design team project using these, and I went crazy. I made a mistake when I printed, and I ended up printing like, I don't know, 8 pages of the whole kit. So I have all these that I'm using. So I put one on a card and then stamped inspired by life, created by hand, one of a kind art created by, and then I signed it and put the year on it. And the second one is pretty similar. Here's the tag for this one. The pocket applique. This one is a frosted vellum, iridescent, and another of the flower seed packets, the vintage green rickrack. And this is from Tsunami Rose, so you can write on the front and the back of that. And this one is also Tsunami Rose. This was on coffee dyed paper. This one says, "Happy are the pure in heart." There's a fabric flip. This is from Tsunami Rose. You can write on that. There's one of the paper dolls. I glued her on as a little tuck spot and tucked in a piece of Tsunami Rose ephemera. And that is from Ephemera's Vintage Garden, and so are these. And this is just a coin envelope. It didn't have the extra flap on it. And I tucked in a couple of cards that you can write on, and I glued one of her butterflies right across the front. This little bunny is cut from my antique book, and this is from Ephemera's Vintage Garden. I love this page right here. Kind of looks like peeling wallpaper. And there's that piece of Folk Art feed sack fabric with one of Ephemera's Garden dolls, the Doodle Fairies. Again, a piece of the tablecloth with some yo-yos and a tag that I made, and Dolly Dingle paper doll. Doodle Fairy is a tuck spot with a piece from that page, and these are the latest Mother Goose brownie pins. So these represent, I guess the brownies were collectibles, these little characters, and these are Mother Goose characters. You know, we have all kinds of collectibles today. That was one back in the olden days. There's some really fancy combs that are collectibles. Hair combs, decorative ones. Here's another piece of feed sack fabric. Isn't that gorgeous? With some yellow rickrack. This is a piece from Tsunami Rose. And then this is from the Dolly Dingle paper dolls. And it's a little bed with some little dollies tucked in. I believe it was from a set of dolls that was, that Dolly Dingle was dressed up like a nurse. So this is a hospital bed, and these are the patients that she's taking care of. There's the vintage graph paper. I love the backside of the printables from this Cottage Garden kit. It's so cool, distressed looking. There's another Dolly Dingle glued on as a tuck spot, and there's some more of the brownies and the Kate Greenaway napkin ring with the girl, and there's the little boy, Kate Greenaway salt and pepper shaker figure. I believe this is from Tsunami Rose. This is from Ephemera's Garden. I'm not sure about that. 50-cent ticket. And this is a vintage velvet ribbon. Love it. I love this pocket, this little tuck spot. This is a blown glass duck, aquamarine glass that was in, I wish it was in color. It was in that antiques book, of course, and this is Tsunami Rose printable, and this is Ephemera's Garden, and then this is the tag. And there's the back with the applique pocket and another flower. I keep wanting to say feed sack. Flower seed packet and my signature. And this is a tuck spot here, so I'll have to make a tag to put in there. So that's what I have to do, is put 2 tags in these journals. and they will be listed in my shop. Thank you so much for watching, or one of them will be listed in my shop. Thank you for watching. I'll leave the link to my shop below, and I will also leave the link for Ephemera's garden, Ephemera's vintage garden. I'll see if I can link Tsunami Rose too. She's no longer on Etsy, but she has her own website, so I'll see if I can link that. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.